Hey, this is Rocket Brain Surgeon. Today we're looking at the Tiger II. Garbad did a full review on it. Link in the comments. Go check it out. If you do not like to hear bad things said about the Tiger II, just go read the article. He gives it a much more favorable review than I will. Spoiler alert, I do not like the Tiger II. I'm not a huge fan because there's nothing that it does particularly well over other tanks. There's not some type of imbalance that you can use in your favor. First up, let's look at the armor. The protection is generally the hallmark of a heavy tank, and the King Tiger kind of disappoints. It's okay for bullying these lower tier medium tanks because they just don't have the penetration, but the armor of the King Tiger is based on thickness rather than slope, and the armor never really gets any better, even with angling. So if you're facing incoming fire head on, your armor effectiveness is going to be roughly against about 200 millimeters, and when you're angled, your armor effective is going to be roughly 200 millimeters. The face of your turrets, again, the effective thickness is roughly 200 millimeters. The problem is, all of the Tier 8 heavy tanks, except like the IS-6 or the KV-5, they all have over 200 millimeters of penetration. And that's just the heavy tanks. The tank destroyers are going to even have more than that. The mediums that want to penetrate you and load gold ammo can do so. So your armor isn't very effective at all. And this is just against Tier 8s. Against Tier 9s and 10s, literally everything pens you just by left-clicking on your tank. That's a pretty big downside. Compare that to something like the IS-3. The IS-3's hull is definitely weaker than the King Tigers in just the vast majority of comparisons and situations that you could make, but the turret is far stronger. It's based on angles and will bounce a lot of shots and is very tough to deal with when hull down. The King Tiger has no trick like that to rely on defensively. It just has to hope that the opponent is going to bounce when the tank is just not set up to produce a lot of bounces. The mobility of the tank is okay, nothing spectacular one way or the other. Here we see Garbad is bullying a T-32, and the T-32 in general is going to have a very tough turret in comparison. So the T-32 is kind of not playing to his strengths. He should be face-hugging a little bit more than he is. The T-32 is auto-aiming into Garbad's mantlet. Also, the T-32 has a penetration of 198, which is just enough to not penetrate the turret of the KT consistently. I find the next shot very funny though. It's one of those things where a blind squirrel can find an acorn now and then. If you point your turret up, you can sometimes block shots with the barrel of your gun, and the T-32 blocked a shot with the barrel of his gun right there. So when you're in a face-hugging war, try to point your barrel up and kind of sword fight with them, and you can get some surprising bounces. Your gun might get damaged, but in a face hug, who cares? The gun on the KT is fine. It has 225 penetration on the base round, that's nice. But the 320 damage per shot means you can't trade profitably with other heavies in tier. You don't have the damage per minute, so you can DPM them down in a face-to-face situation. It's just mediocre. Rounding out this pile of okay is just standard heavy mobility and no camouflage. Not really detriments of the tank. Every heavy kind of undergoes those same things. One of the phrases I really hate that's commonly associated with this tank is jack of all trades, master of none. If you're in the bottom or near the bottom of every category, that's not jack of all trades. It's just it performs poorly in all areas. So the penetration is fine. The T-32 has less penetration. Some other heavies in tier have marginally less penetration. Okay, so the King Tiger does not shine there. The Alpha, there's one tank that has less Alpha in tier. There's the mobility. Doesn't have mobility either. So it's like you go down the checklist and literally every other tank in tier, every other heavy in tier, does something better than the King Tiger and has all of the things that the King Tiger has as well. So like the T-32, yeah, it might have slightly less penetration, but it also has better gun depression and a much stronger turret. So it's just a strict upgrade. There's a trick that you can use that's going to be very, very useful in a lot of situations that the King Tiger doesn't have. Or like the VK has great mobility. No, it might not have the best armor in the world, so 175 pen guns are going to be more effective than it, but the mobility is just a huge asset, and being somewhat more protected against 175 pen guns just isn't that valuable. So here we're approaching the moment of truth where the Tiger II just doesn't have enough to carry the game. Recently there were reviews on the Jagdpanther II, which squared off against 5 tanks in a hull-down situation and came out victorious. I mean, like, it was shockingly one-sided how well the Jagdpanther II could use its advantage over the enemy. There was a review released recently on the ELC where it was able to be 200 meters away, firing at several opponents, and they just never saw him, literally never saw him. There was another review on even the Tiger I, where the Tiger I could just sit and trade shots because of its awesome damage per minute advantage. The King Tiger has none of that, and basically just has to sit here and hope. So Garbad's trying to set up some reverse angling. It's not really going to happen because of that hill there, but even if it did, they could just go right through his turret. When the moment of truth arrives, sadly, the King Tiger just comes up short. Hope you enjoyed. Happy hunting.